Yeah, that's a good segue, Dan, on that topic of like getting these products more in the hands of mainstream players, mainstream adoption. And let's start exploring that a little bit more. So this is a Games Growth podcast. We talked a little bit about in the weeds, what's going on at the funding and game level. Now let's talk about scaling, distribution, and related topics. I want to start with distribution. Jerry, you flagged some interesting news of the last week or so, which was MetaMask launching, not in the wallet, but in the portfolio function, starting to have like a game launch function there where you're already signed into your wallet. So that can be almost like a single sign-on and you can use that for discovery. Another topic that a few of us have debated a few times internally is there's this tendency and trend for products such as Fantasy Top to launch as progressive web apps on mobile rather than going through the Apple and Google Play stores. If you were advising one of Uptick's clients or a game team that you're friends with, like what would you be telling them to prioritize as the platforms that are the most relevant for mainstream adoption today?
I think that the MetaMask integration of like functioning as a pseudo games launcher is actually like a way bigger deal than the industry has responded to it. You know, we always talk about like launchers only become the launchers that they are because of the games, right? You need the hit product first. You need the Half-Life 2 if you're Steam. You need Fortnite if you're Epic to grow to this large launcher. This is something that's already on like 30 million PCs, right? I think MetaMask has like 30 million daily active users. That's users, not wallets, right? That's a pretty significant number of people who are using it. You kind of have to look for it in MetaMask's like current UX, UI flow. But it's not that hard to find, right? The moment you open up MetaMask into like a full screen, you see it and, you know, you see some games there that we all know and we talk about. I thought the industry would kind of respond to this a little bit more strongly. People seem to not be terribly excited about it. So that would be like a very quick thing to tell teams, just like there's a huge distribution problem in Web3. So answers are starting to come from it, right? People can say what they want about like PWAs or progressive web apps. And I don't really know how I feel about them too much just yet, but answers are starting to come through and people are starting to work on tech to solve for the distribution problem.
Yeah, I still think it's really hard to kind of, and I know this is a weird term to use, but to centralize gaming in Web3. Because I mean, how many wallets do we have, guys? I can't even remember how many wallets I've had to make to play a lot of the games that we have within our industry. It's probably in the north of 6-7 wallets. And I think we still need a platform or something like MetaMask is doing to kind of centralize everything a little bit more. Users are used to, you know, the app stores, right, to find every game. They're used to like the, you know, like the Steams of the world to find the games in there. And I think we also need something like that in Web3, right? We can't just be having like a collection of games per chain. I think that's a little bit really complicated. So hopefully in the future, we can get something that just makes it a lot easier for just removing those barriers of entries for users.
Right. I'm personally pretty bearish on Web3 native launchers with a caveat of like businesses where it's like their primary business is a launcher because there's just so many of them out there and the audience is so distributed. You know, discovery is really concentrated with the entrenched titans. Yep. My personal take, I think PWAs, progressive web apps, are kind of a fool's errand if you're trying to do anything scalable. Like your grandma's not going to discover a game. Regular people discover through the App Store, through the Epic Store, Steam Store, through those trusted sources, especially if they're downloading some weird crypto thing for the first time. That's my personal thesis. Maybe I'm a boomer, but I mean, do we see that there's any kind of scaled examples of a progressive web app that has moved beyond like a niche case within Web3? Am I missing something here?
No, I don't think so. Anybody who makes the case, and we're in a unique position to answer this question, Warren, I think I would answer your question with a question. And it's like, are any of the Web2 teams we talk to looking at progressive web apps as an option?
Yeah, absolutely not. I'd say the corner case, the corner case is those and maybe some of the casino and real money gaming space where, again, it's a gamble that some teams are making of like, A, I can sidestep having to obey Apple and Google policies, and B, I can sidestep having to give away the 30% revenue share that most platforms ask for, roughly. But my counter argument is like the exposure you get is going to be much greater. The addressable audience is so much greater than the 30% that you're giving away.
I view it the same way we view launchers in gaming, right? I think progressive web apps don't really become a great answer for most teams until there's a hit app that is using
Yeah.
the PWA tech, at that point when that happens, I think it'll, like we were talking about DraftKings earlier, I think it'll be very similar to that, where the App Store's policies will change in time when there's enough demand for it. So I think that's a temporary solution, but for the Web3 side, it is at least an answer. And so people are getting excited over that to be an option.
Yeah. And I would differentiate, I think the thing that you called out, Jerry, of discovery via MetaMask, that's huge. And that's very different from a startup that's core product is a launcher. Because as you said, some meaningful percentage of 30 million people that may be surfaced parallel for the first time or one of the games that's featured. And you can leverage, to use a Web2 term, like the single sign-on, the digital identity of a wallet sign-in to streamline your onboarding and financial hooks into that game, which I think is like super, super high value for streamlining.